So another very common protective personality pattern that I see in my practice is that of what I think of as the hero. And so the struggle that the hero has is fundamentally with their humanity being enough. And so this is the sore spot, this is the struggle, this is the place that we go to protect under pressure, is that in some way we're not quite good enough. And so there's a few ways in terms of how this presents itself. So the most extreme would be Donald Trump, for example. So having to insist that he is the best. And it's comical to hear him say things like, I have all the best words. This was the greatest. This was the best. Constantly. And so there's a real compensation there in terms of the insistence on the best to protect against the fact that, well, what if you're ordinary? What if you are an ordinary human being? And so what the hero does is that they carry these expectations, and often these people perform very, very highly. They carry these expectations that they're supposed to be Superman, that they're supposed to be Wonder Woman, and often they are. But the great fear is, and where they never really get to come home or come back to earth, is within the humanity, is within the fact that they have fragilities, they have imperfections, they need time, they need all of the things that all of us do in order to feel loved. And so there is this sense of running or pushing or burning in order to be more. Now the flip side of that is avoidance. So the person who is on the couch and is avoiding moving into all of their potential because it might not be good enough. So often these people will go back to reading, they'll go back to preparation, they'll go back to study, they'll go back to all of these different levels of trying to establish a base of being good enough, but very rarely shipping, very rarely putting out what they need to in the world. So for example, the artist might have a great skill set to offer, but they're actually not putting that out into the world. And so what's the challenge for the hero? And the challenge is to step out of being Wonder Woman, to step out of being Superman, and to be an ordinary human being, if only for a moment. Now the irony is that if we step into our humanness, if we step into our ordinariness, then that's the place where we can actually gain traction in walking on the earth. That's where the world can learn to appreciate us. It's where we can learn to appreciate the perfection in imperfection. And that fundamentally, that's where the deepest levels of love come from, is that we step outside of the roles that we play for the world. And then we step outside of the roles that we played for each other when we fell in love, and then we can be loved at a deeper level that we never thought was possible. From there, we have a deeper sense of security that we don't have to fight, we don't have to push to play those roles anymore, that fundamentally we have a home inside ourselves and a home in each other. So the result of this is that we can then go out into the world being ourselves, being enough, even though some people might not think that we are, or we're not everyone's cup of tea. But from there, that's where we form more genuine connections in business, because people can tell. People can tell if you're the real deal. They can tell if you're at home with yourself, outside of any cheesy, superficial sales process. They can tell, and that's where you're going to develop a customer base. That's where, whatever you're doing, if you're trying to make that scalable, it's going to resonate with that ring of truth. And so, how do we do that? How do we assist someone going from that expectation that they're supposed to be Wonder Woman or Superman? And it's just coming back to the humility around their humanity being a noble task. And sometimes it takes a little bit of time. It takes some years before the burnout and some of the lethargy of, yes, I could do this. I could potentially do a better job than my team or than others. But you know what? I'm tired of pushing myself like that. That's actually not going to better me. That's not going to be me improving myself by continuing to pursue excellence at a certain level. I am actually going to better myself and grow by letting go of some tasks. Great example is the entrepreneur who's grown a business from nothing, which has been an expression of their hard work and their ingenuity. But they have to let go of some of those tasks in order to grow. They have to trust and train other people who may not initially do as good a job as they would. And so the fear is that that would be their imperfection, or learning to improve those processes would be a reflection that that person didn't have as much value. So that's a very common one as well. The other is the artist. And the artist, as I was saying before, they may have that skill set, but the challenge, I sort of playfully talk about shipping shit. They have to ship out these products or this process, whatever it is that they're offering the world. And the challenge, playfully here, is to allow it to be shit, allow it to be crap. And that becomes part of their lexicon, part of the way they interact with people, is that I'm terrified that this is not good enough. But you know what? The value of what I'm offering is sufficient. And so if you're hooked up on the fact that this wasn't right or that wasn't right, so be it. But I'm offering something that has some heart and that has some inherent value in what it is based on my experience. And so if we can playfully sort of work with the idea that I know it's not perfect, but this is for people who are looking for the value amidst any of those imperfections. And if you look, I promise you that it's there. So that's usually the transition point for artists who've been stuck on the couch. It's heartbreaking when you see some people do beautiful work. I had a really very dear friend of mine who suffered from this. He did the most incredible life-size painting, and we saw this painting evolve over the process of about 9 months, like a pregnancy. And then he just whitewashed all over this thing because he couldn't bear the imperfection. I'm so proud to see this friend now who's actually embraced some of those, and he keeps sketches and he evolves and he revises and he goes back and refines things. But he is also able to share some of that work with other people and demonstrate that and to offer it as it is, knowing that there are imperfections in there. But those imperfections have become part of his artistic style. And so, it's a great example to see people doing that. So the implications, as with any of these styles, are in business, financially, romantically, that you can allow someone to be close enough to you to love you outside of that role or what you provide, but just for being you. So some of the language there is step outside of being Wonder Woman or Superman, come back to your humanness, and listen to the truth of being tired of having to over-deliver, over-push when there's nothing coming back. And if you continue to do that, it's actually going to disempower your growth. It's going to disempower the way that the world relates with the value of who you really are, which is what you need in order to grow, to scale, or to love more deeply in life. So if you or someone that you know struggles with this pattern of being the hero, I'd be very happy to refine any of that with you.